All right, welcome everybody to our Let Freedom Read celebration tonight. My name is Marty Ackett. I'll talk a little bit more about myself once we start the readings at around 7 o'clock or a little bit after. But I just want to thank a couple groups. I want to thank the Friends of Peter White Public Library who provide the live stream equipment. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can thank the Friends of Peter White Public Library for that. And also, I have to thank the Carol Paul Memorial Trust Fund, who provides all of the financing for our musical acts like Dylan here. So Carol Paul brings you Dylan Trost tonight. I'm going to, like I said, I'll save my other remarks for when we start with the readings, but I'm going to show you one other thing that's really important. This is the biggest job for me right now, introducing Dylan. You see this little bucket over here? See, this is what you do with it if you have this around. So you drop it in there, because he needs pizza after this. All right, well, let's give Dylan a hand. Here we go.
Thanks, Marty. How's it going out there? Smells good in here, like a movie theater. Well, my name's Dylan, as he just said. Some people might know me as Stan Berry, which is kind of a name I prefer. This is a song I wrote called The Hemlock Tree. Kind of came to me in a strange waking dream when I was out in the woods one day. And if I didn't really sound check, so if it sounds weird, just yell at me. Tell me if it sounds like garbage. In dreams, and every memory is a star in your constellation. There is so much to see within the wind and the shade, under the hemlock tree where time fades like receding waves, and the world you know is a still in a picture frame where people say hello instead of goodbye, and everyone's happy without even having to try, under the hemlock tree. I No.
I was
Short answer, no. Not yet. No, I do have some records on there, actually. Spotify, though. Maybe Apple Music. I don't know. I don't use Apple Music. This next one, oh, thanks, boss. This next one is a song I wrote a long time ago. It's an old Lonesome Cowboy song, so I dedicate this to my friend Kyle, who likes Lonesome Old Cowboy songs. I wrote this song. I lived in Colorado a long time ago, and I was up in Wyoming a lot, and I worked at this horseback adventure tour place. There was a guy there who ran the place who was like a true, real, live cowboy. It was like right out of his Zane Grey novel or something, but like a modern version. He had a cell phone. But he didn't say much, and when he did talk, it was like heavy. It was like, wow, it was like, you really listen. Everybody listened if he was saying something. It was usually very deep and heavy, or very hilarious and inappropriate. But anyway, I had heard from somebody else there that when he died, he wanted he was from Wyoming, he wanted his ashes to be tied around the neck of a wild horse. Whoa. So his spirit could roam free in the desert. And I was like, ugh, that's amazing. So I clocked that away. And a couple years later, I wrote a poem that eventually became this song. So this one's called Tie My Heart to a Wild Horse. I'm gonna tune first like a real professional. Actually, if I was a real professional, I'd have a tuner. Close enough. Anyway, Tie My Heart to a Wild Horse. I don't really know much about banned books, I apologize. I am very grateful to be here, though, so I really appreciate Marty asking me to be here at the library. I always loved playing at the library. My first job was at the library. When I was 17, I put away books. And I wish I still had that job. It was awesome. Because I had a Walkman, a CD Walkman, and I would put it in the back pocket of my jeans in one pocket, and the other one would have a stack of CDs, just not in cases, just stacked. Not ideal. And it was great because nobody ever checked on me, so I read a lot of books. Don't tell them upstairs that I said that. I do read a fair amount of books, and this next song was influenced by a John Steinbeck book called The Pearl. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that book. I stole a few lines from it. Anyway, this one's called Pearly Bones. Solid. You know, I used to do this kind of thing a lot. I used to have a regular Monday gig at Black Rocks, and I gigged all the time. I haven't done this in a very long time. I'm very nervous, so I really appreciate you being here with me. I feel safe in the library. I think I'm going to play a song that I didn't write. That might make me feel a little bit better. You'll recognize this one. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's Halloween season, which is probably my favorite season.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get into the ghost portion of my set list. Hope that's okay.
Yeah.
This is a song I wrote, I've been writing for a while. All these songs are still works in progress. They're never done. I don't think a song is ever really done. This one's pretty close, though. It's probably my favorite song I ever wrote. It's called Flickering Lights, in parentheses, The Long Dark Hall. It's a true story. I'll let you figure that out. I've become a stranger us down the river. You're down there and I'm upstream. There are many clocks to punch until the next time's dream. It will take a lifetime of war to figure out what it's for. There is something that's been here all your lives, within those flickering lights. Start to get the fear when you whisper in my ear, 'cause I feel you and there's nobody here. It's natural to be afraid of what you cannot see, and what I'm feeling now is also me. I've become a stranger in a once familiar place. There are new eyes in my new face, and this new house is drenched in honey, and it's sliding down the walls, and there's a flickering light down the long, dark Hey Marty, what time do I play till?
You play one more song.
Oh, one more song?
Yeah.
Alright. Time flies when you're singing about ghosts. Alright, well, I'll play one more song. Thanks for listening. I think I might play harmonica if that's okay.
Yeah!
No, I suck at it. I don't even know if it works. Sounds good enough. This is a song I wrote called Strange Light. This is one of those songs I like to call a word salad because I wrote about 50 verses to it. And every time I play it, I can't remember what order I use, so I always end up mixing it up. And it's kind of fun because it makes it a little bit different every time. I don't even remember all 50 verses, I remember about 12. Anyway, my name's Dylan Trost. Sometimes I perform as Stanberry, usually. I don't know when you'll see me next. I'm around though. I am on Spotify and probably Apple Music too. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know how that works. So you gotta hear the tuning sung so much tonight. I just want to sound good for you. Dylan Trost. Thanks for listening. Yeah, you've been great. I'll be around.
Just give us a second to sort of get set up here. All right. Thank you, Dylan. Let's give Dylan another hand. So I'm going to go through some of the introductory stuff that I already did at 6:30 because some people weren't here. So again, if you don't know who I am, my name is Marty Ackett, and I am the Adult Programming Coordinator here at Peter White Public Library. And welcome to our Let Freedom Read celebration, which is our kickoff to Banned Books Week. I have two groups. All of you know this. Well, that we're here at 6:30. I have two groups to thank. One is the Friends of Peter White Public Library, who paid for all of the live streaming equipment, and then also the Carol Paul Memorial Trust Fund that gives me the means to bring wonderful musicians like Dylan Trost here to the library so often. So always thankful for those two groups. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a little story. All right. When I was in 6th grade, I struggled. I was a strange kid. If you can believe that. It's hard to believe, isn't it? I was into music and poetry and drama and writing, and I just didn't fit in. And I maybe some of you can sort of feel this way. I just felt completely alone at that time. Until I met Holden Caulfield. Yeah, J.D. Salinger's Holden was just as much an oddball as I was, not really fitting in anywhere. And he suffered from things like depression and the loss of a brother. And he stumbled through The Catcher in the Rye, expressing himself in a way that I completely and totally understood. Right? He swore, he drank, he was sad, he was happy, he was angry. Holden was me, and I was Holden. Or so I thought. So reading that book made me feel not quite so alone and alienated. Reading that book, I truly believe saved my life at that time. And that's why we're here tonight. Banned Books Week celebrates the freedom to read and spotlights current and historical attempts to censor books in libraries, in libraries and schools. And the books featured during Banned Books Week have all been targeted for removal or restriction in those institutions. In this really intense time of political division, library staff and school staff in every state are facing an unprecedented number of attempts to ban books. The ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom documented 1,269 demands to censor library books and resources just in 2022. And that is the highest number of attempted book bans since the ALA began compiling that list 20 years ago. And this number nearly doubles the 729 book challenges that were reported in 2021, which is really alarming. It's an alarming statistic. Of the record, 2,571 titles targeted for censorship. Most were by or about LGBTQIA+ people, Black people, Indigenous peoples, and people of color. When we ban books, we're closing off readers to people, places, and perspectives that need to be heard, seen, and welcomed. When we ban books, our visions, narrow and our minds close. When we stand up for books, we stand up for things like compassion and love. When we stand up for books, we embrace the dissemination of knowledge and understanding. And I will add this: when we stand up for books, sometimes we can save lives. We can really save lives. And this event is for all of the Holden Caulfields out there. So, I'm going to be your host tonight. I know I'm not quite as cute as Dylan, but and I don't have a tip jar, so you don't have to worry about that. But anyway, I'm going to I'll introduce all of the readers, and our first reader tonight is going to be a friend of mine who almost 33 years. Wow. Dr. Beverly Mathern, who is currently serving as the UP Poet Laureate. As I said, I've known Beverly for over 33 years. She's been a mentor to me, a friend to me, a colleague to me, and I can't be more excited to have her here tonight to share what she has brought. So Beverly, if you want to come.
Yeah!
Thank you, Marty. I fell in love with Holden Caulfield when I read that book. And I introduced it to my younger sister, and she fell in love with it. So if you haven't read it yet, do you? So I'm going to be reading from Beloved by Toni Morrison. And the first excerpt that I would like to read takes place after Sethi, who is an enslaved woman, at a plantation in Kentucky called Sweet Home. This is after she has escaped from the plantation with her children, and she's being hunted down by a band of 4 men who intend to take her and the children back to the plantation. And I'm going to have to skip a big piece in here in order to honor time limits. And the person referred to, by the way, as school teacher is the seer, and he's very brutal. When the 4 horsemen came, school teacher, 1 nephew, 1 slave catcher, and a sheriff, the house on Bluestone Road was so quiet, they thought they were too late. A crazy old nigger was standing in the woodpile with an axe. You could tell he was crazy right off because he was grunting, making low cat noises like. About 12 yards beyond that nigger was another one, a woman with a flower in her hat. Crazy too, probably, because she too was standing stock still, but fanning her hands as though pushing cobwebs out of her way. Both, however, were staring at the same place, a shed. Nephew walked over to the old nigger boy and took the axe from him. Then all 4 started toward the shed. And here's what they found. Inside, 2 boys bled in the sawdust and dirt at the feet of a nigger woman, holding a blood-soaked child to her chest with one hand and an infant by the heels in another. She did not look at them. She simply swung the baby toward the wall planks, missed and tried to connect a second time, when out of nowhere, in the ticking time the men spent staring at what there was to stare at, the old nigger boy, still mewing, ran through the door behind them and snatched the baby from the ark of its mother's swing. Right off, it was clear, to school teachers especially, that there was nothing there to claim. The 3, now 4 because she had the one coming when she cut, pickaninnies they had hoped were alive and well enough to take back to Kentucky, take back and raise properly to do the work Sweet Home desperately needed, were not. They were lying open-eyed in sawdust. A third pumped blood down the dress of the main one, the woman the school teacher bragged about, the one he said made fine ink, damn good soup, pressed his collars the way he liked, besides having at least 10 breeding years left. But now she's gone wild. And this is a very, very hard scene in the book for, especially the younger the student, the more difficult it is. But it is interpreted like this, that Sefi's actions, to kill her own children is really extreme expression of love, because she does not want them to grow up knowing the pain and the suffering, the humiliation, in her case, the rape and all the ways that enslaved peoples are discredited. Also in this section, I won't read it because it's not time, but there's a reference to the rape of Sefi by the two nephews of school teacher. One holds her down and the other sucks all the milk from her breasts that are intended for her unborn baby. So I'm going to read another short excerpt, and it's when Sefi and a character by the name of Paul D., who had also worked who also was an enslaved person at the plantation in Kentucky. He had tried to run away, but along with another enslaved man, and that man was murdered. And Paul D. was he was sent to a colony, not a colony. What's the word? To a chain gang, a prison camp in Georgia, and then he was forced into a chain gang, and so one of the things though that teacher did to him, school teacher, was he put into his mouth an iron bit, so that Paul D. could no longer speak, could no longer scream, and which in the novel is really very important, because he actually is a witness to the rape, and he's not the rape of Sefi, and he's not able to scream out to alert anyone. But he's very, very traumatized, and because of that, he's not able to stay in one place. He's always on the go. He's sort of like a vagabond. He's not able to form any close ties, close relationships. And that's the way that he represses his pain from what he's experienced. And so this excerpt is one in which he and Sefi, they have met up 18 years after they have fled north to their freedom. And so Sefi says to him, "I don't have to tell you about Sweet Home, what it was, but maybe you don't know what it was like for me to get away from there." Covering the lower half of her face with her palms, she paused to consider again the size of the miracle, its flavor. I did it. I got us all out, without Hallie too. Hallie's her husband. Up till then, it was the only thing I ever did on my own, decided, and it came off right, like it was supposed to. We was here, each and every one of my babies and me too. I birthed them, and I got them out, and it wasn't no accident. I did that. I had help, of course, lots of that, but still, it was me doing it, me saying, go on, and now, me having to look out, me using my own head, but it was more than that. It was a kind of selfishness I never knew nothing about before. before. It felt good, good and right. I was big, Paul D., and deep and wide, and when I stretched out my arms, all my children could get in between. I was that wide. Looked like I'd love 'em more after I got here, or maybe I couldn't love 'em proper in Kentucky because they wasn't mine to love. But when I got here, when I jumped down from that wagon, there wasn't nobody in the world I couldn't love if I wanted to. You know what I mean? Paul D. did not answer because she didn't expect or want him to, but he did know what she meant. Listening to the doves in Alfred, Georgia, and having neither the right nor the permission to enjoy it because in that place, mist, doves, sunlight, copper, dirt, moon, everything belonged to men who had guns. Little men, some of them, big men too, each one of whom he could snap like a twig if he wanted to. Men who knew their manhood lay in their guns were not even embarrassed by the knowledge that without gunshot, Fox would laugh at them. And these men, who made even Vixen laugh, could, if you let them, stop you from hearing doves and loving moonlight. So you protected yourself and loved small, picked the tiniest stars in the sky to own. Lay down with head twisted in order to see the loved one over the rim of the trench before you slept. Stow shy glances at her between the trees at chain up. Grass, blades, salamanders, spiders, woodpeckers, beetles, a kingdom of ants. Anything bigger wouldn't do. A woman, a child, a brother, a big love like that would split you open in Alfred, Georgia. He knew exactly what she meant. To get to a place where you could love anything you choose, not to need permission for desire. Well now, that was freedom.
By the way, there's lots of food back there, so please don't be shy about going and getting up and helping yourself. There's lots of food, there's lots of cider. So, all right. Our next reader is Juniper Bray. Juniper is a student of mine this semester. And you know what? When I first offered this, she didn't even wait for me to say, oh, by the way, there's extra credit for doing this. She volunteered. So that's pretty amazing. So please welcome Juniper Bray, who's going to be reading from Me and Earl and the Dying Girl.
Hi, everyone. So as you heard, I'm Juniper. And when Martin was explaining to our class about banned books, I was pretty excited just because it's an interesting concept. And then he mentioned that one of my favorite books was on that list. And I couldn't let that just slide. I was like, if people are going to be talking about banned books, they need to hear about my favorite. So, for context, Me, Earl, the Dying Girl is a young adult book about the titular character is Me, Earl, the Dying Girl. And it is an expression of grief through a teenager's eyes. And I think that's a really valuable resource. So, I was looking into it, and the reason this book is banned is for sexually explicit content. And so I took it upon myself to go through the book and tag anything I thought they might consider. And if you can see in my very well-loved copy, there are 5 orange sticky notes. That was it. 5, and I was very generous about what I counted, and that was it. And I thought that was such a disservice to this book, to boil it down to 5 vague mentions of sex by teenagers. So, ignoring all that, because that's not what I want to focus on, the excerpt I chose is right at the end of the book. It's our main character Greg's discovery about what happens, and this will spoil a bit, after Rachel dies. Now, just because you know the ending doesn't mean you know the story, so I'd still recommend reading it. But this is his discovery upon just the minutes and hours after she died. And Denise, who I will mention in a second, is Rachel's mother. Denise was just sitting there frozen. At the same time, and I hated myself for this, I was realizing how to make the movie I should have made. That it had to be something that stored as much of Rachel as possible. That ideally, we would have had a camera on her for her whole life, and one inside her head. And it made me so bitter and fucking angry that this was impossible. She was just going to be lost. Just as if she had never been around to say things, and laugh at people, and have favorite words that she liked to use, and ways of fidgeting with her fingers when she got antsy, and specific memories that flashed through her head when she ate a certain food or smelled a certain smell. Like, I don't know, maybe how honeysuckle made her think of one particular summer day playing with a friend, or whatever the fuck. Or how rain on the windshield of her mom's car used to look like alien fingers to her, or whatever. And as if she had never had fantasies about stupid Hugh Jackman, or visions of what her life was going to be like in college, or a whole unique way of thinking about the world that was never going to be articulated to anyone. All of it, and everything else she had ever thought, was just going to be lost. And the point of Rachel the film should really have been to express how awful and shitty that loss was. That she would become a person with a long, awesome life if she had just been allowed to continue living. And that this was just a stupid, meaningless loss. Just a motherfucking loss. A loss, fucking loss. There was no fucking meaning to it. There was nothing good that could come out of it. And I was sitting there, thinking about the film. And I knew the film would have had to have a scene of me losing my shit in the hospital room, and her mom sitting there, wordless and dead-eyed like a statue. And I hated myself for having a cold, detached part of me that thought this, but I couldn't help it. I recommend this book.
Thank you, Jennifer. And by the way, you will get those extra credit points. That was a fantastic reading. Congratulations. Our next reader is my friend. Again, every person that I asked, unless they had something that was conflicting with this, didn't even hesitate. And Melissa was one of those people. When I said, hey, would you like to read? She said, absolutely. Melissa here is the head of circulation at PWPL. So if you have overdue fines, you see her. But Melissa is also an avid and voracious reader. And she is going to be reading an excerpt from John Green's The Fault in Our Stars.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for letting me be a part of this. I also have a young adult novel that is also about teens and death. Go figure. I'm going to curate mine and learning. And I was thinking about what you were saying about the potentially problematic things being so few and far between. This book, same thing, The Fault in Our Stars, and I think that I'm a parent now. I have a little guy. And I think about, I want to shield him from the, not so great experiences of life, but that's also not realistic. And so I think often our young people get caught up in this where they want to be so sheltered and protected, and that often leads to them not being able to be exposed to how life actually is. And it comes with good stuff and bad stuff. So I chose to focus on the young adult author John Green. If you don't know him, he's a New York Times bestselling author. He's sold over 40 million books. His books have been made into movies, including the one I'm going to read from, The Fault in Our Stars. He hosts 2 hugely popular YouTube channels with his brother Hank. One of those channels, Crash Course, has 15 million subscribers. So he's got a far and wide reach of influence. And the brothers own a multimedia company that produces content for young adults. It's educational, it's creative, it's entertaining. And so you can say they've done pretty well for themselves. But what do they do with all of their success? They started a foundation called the Foundation to Decrease World Suck. And they've given away millions of dollars to nonprofits, including the National Center for Transgender Equality, the Trevor Project, the Prison Book Program, and Earth Justice, along many others. And he's always encouraged his fans to abide by the saying, "Don't forget to be awesome." So I feel like John is just a great guy. He's not afraid to shy away from a challenge. He uses wit and humor, and his books reflect this. He writes about real experiences that young adults can relate to. So when you think about banned books and John Green, you probably think about Looking for Alaska, which was published in 2005. It's frequently on the American Library Association's most banned books list. Last year alone, it received more than 50 challenges in schools across the country. But I'm not going to read from that tonight. I'm reading from a different book that's also been challenged just this past year. So this book was originally published in 2012. So now, 11 years after it was published, the board of the Hamilton East Public Library required a review of the young adult section for age-appropriate content. To date, this review has cost close to $300,000, and it's very vague in its requirements. The staff were instructed to remove books that included a list of profanities, criminal acts, and sexual content. So guess what happened to the young adult section? Half of it was moved to the adult section. So that included this book, The Fault in Our Stars. So Green criticized the decision as, quote, political theater of the lowest and most embarrassing order. So in August, after a lot of public backlash, the board halted the review to further consider the policy, but they have not moved the books back. So that's a little context why I chose the book. So back to the book. To set the scene from the excerpt that I'm reading, the story is really a coming-of-age story of two teenagers who both have terminal cancer diagnosis. The story brings us into the awkwardness and the exasperation that I know I often felt as a teenager, especially when trying to date. But it combines that with the heaviness of the unknown timelines that the main characters have because of their illness. The two main characters, Augustus and Hazel, they meet at a Kids with Cancer support group. And this excerpt I'm going to read is like the third or fourth time that they've spent some time together. Augustus takes Hazel on a picnic in a sculpture park, which is set in Indianapolis. And in the excerpt, you'll hear a reference to a wish, with a capital W. This is in reference to the Make-A-Wish program, which provides special experiences for terminally sick children. So at this point, Hazel has used her wish when she was younger, and her outlook was not so good. She was quite sick. She was teased quite a bit by Augustus because when she spent her wish, she went to Disney. Yeah. Okay, he said, okay, name some things that you never see in Indianapolis. Skinny adults, I said. He laughed. Good, keep going. Beaches, family-owned restaurants, topography. All excellent examples of things we lack. Also, culture. Yeah, we are a bit short on culture, I said, finally realizing where he was taking me. Are we going to the museum? In a manner of speaking. Oh, are we going to that park or whatever? Gus looked a bit deflated. Yes, we are going to that park or whatever, he said. You figured it out, haven't you? Figured what out? Nothing. There was this park behind the museum where a bunch of artists had made big sculptures. I'd heard about it, but had never visited. We drove past the museum and parked right next to this basketball court filled with huge blue and red steel arcs that imagined the path of a bouncing ball. We walked down what passes for a hill in Indianapolis to this clearing where kids were climbing all over this huge oversized skeleton sculpture. The bones were each about waist high, and the thigh bone was longer than me. It looked like a child's drawing of a skeleton rising up out of the ground. My shoulder hurt. I worried the cancer had spread from my lungs. I imagined the tumor metastasizing into my own bones, boring holes into my skeleton, a slithering eel of insidious intent. Funky bones, Augustus said, created by Joop van Lieshout. Sounds Dutch. He is, Gus said. So is Rick Smits, and so are tulips. Gus stopped in the middle of the clearing with the bones right in front of us and slipped his backpack off one shoulder, then the other. He unzipped it, producing an orange blanket, a pint of orange juice, and some sandwiches wrapped in plastic wrap with the crust cut off. What's with all the orange, I said, still not wanting to let myself imagine that all this would lead to Amsterdam. National color of the Netherlands, of course. You remember William of Orange and everything. He wasn't on the GED test, I smiled, trying to contain my excitement. Sandwich, he asked. Let me guess, I said. Dutch cheese and tomato. The tomatoes are from Mexico, sorry. You're always such a disappointment, Augustus. Couldn't you have at least gotten orange tomatoes? He laughed and we ate our sandwiches in silence, watching the kids play on the sculpture. I couldn't very well ask him about it, so I just sat there surrounded by Dutchness, feeling awkward and hopeful. In the distance, soaked in the unblemished sunlight so rare and precious in our hometown, a gaggle of kids made a skeleton into a playground, jumping back and forth among the prosthetic bones. Two things I love about this sculpture, Augustus said. First, the bones are just far enough apart that if you're a kid, you cannot resist the urge to jump between them. Like you just have to jump off from rib cage to skull. Which means that second, the sculpture essentially forces children to play on bones. The symbolic resonances are endless, Hazel Grace. You do love symbols, I said, hoping to steer the conversation back toward the many symbols of the Netherlands at our picnic. Right about that, you were probably wondering why you were eating a bad cheese sandwich and drinking orange juice, and why I'm wearing the jersey of a Dutchman who played a sport I have come to loathe. It has crossed my mind, I said. Hazel Grace, like so many children before you, and I say this with great affection, you spent your wish hastily, with little care for the consequences. The Grim Reaper was staring you in the face, and the fear of dying with your wish still in your proverbial pocket, ungranted, led you to rush toward the first wish you could think of. And you, like so many others, chose the cold and artificial pleasures of the theme park. Hey, I actually had a great time on that trip. I met Goofy and I'm in the midst of a soliloquy. I wrote this out and memorized it, and if you interrupt me, I will completely screw it up, Augustus interrupted. Please, eat your sandwich and listen. Okay, where was I? The artificial pleasures. Right. The cold and artificial pleasures of this theme park. But let me submit that the real heroes of the Wish Factory are the young men and women who wait, like Vladimir and Estragon wait for Godot, and good Christian girls wait for marriage. These young heroes wait stoically and without complaint for their one true wish to come along. Sure, it may never come along, but at least they can rest easily in the grave, knowing that they've done their little part to preserve the integrity of the wish as an idea. But then again, maybe it will come along. Maybe you'll realize that your one true wish is to visit the brilliant Peter Van Houten in his Amsterdamian exile, and you will be glad indeed to have saved your wish. Augustus stopped speaking long enough that I figured the soliloquy was over. But I didn't save my wish, I said. Ah, he said, and then after what felt like a practiced pause, he added, but I saved mine. Really? I was surprised that Augustus was wish eligible. What with being still in school in a year into remission, you had to be pretty sick for the genies to hook you up with a wish. I got it in exchange for the leg, he explained. There was all this light on his face. He had to squint to look at me, which made his nose crinkle adorably. Now I'm not going to give you my wish or anything, but I also have an interest in meeting Peter Van Houten, and it wouldn't make sense to meet him without the girl who introduced me to his book. It definitely wouldn't, I said. So I talked to the genies, and they are in total agreement. They said Amsterdam is lovely in the beginning of May. They proposed leaving May 3rd and returning May 7th. Augustus, really? He reached over and touched my cheek, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me. My body tensed, and I think he saw it because he pulled his hand away. Augustus, I said, really? You don't have to do this. Sure I do, he said. I found my wish. God, you're the best, I told him. I bet you say that to all the boys who finance your international travel, he answered.
So I've known our next reader for 15 years and 6 days. His name is Gideon Ackett. And he's going to be coming up here to read an excerpt from Stephen Schabatsky's The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
who is going into high school with no real knowledge of what happens, sex and drugs. But yeah, that's kind of that's mostly the basis of the story. But I really didn't have any statistics on how many times it was banned. But in the 2021 and 2022 school year, I looked this up just like 5 minutes ago, it was banned about 8 times. And the only real things I could guess that it would be banned for is there was, I think, one particular part of sexual harassment and then multiple times that they mention underage drug use. But that's the only things that I can muster. The excerpt I'm reading is in the start of the book, where he doesn't really know much about being a teenager. You know, he's just going into high school. So yeah. October 15th, 1991. Dear friend, I guess I forgot to mention in my last letter that it was Patrick who told me about masturbation. I guess I also forgot to tell you how often I do it now, which is a lot. I don't like to look at pictures. I just close my eyes and dream about a lady I do not know. And I try not to feel ashamed. I never think about Sam when I do it. That's his crush. Never. That's very important to me because I was so happy when she said Charlie-esque, since it felt like an inside joke of sorts. One night, I felt so guilty that I promised God that I would never do it again. So I started using blankets. But then the blankets hurt, so I started using pillows. But then the pillows hurt, so I went back to normal. I wasn't raised very religiously because my parents went to Catholic school. But I do believe in God very much. I just never gave God a name, if you know what I mean. I hope I haven't let him down regardless. Incidentally, my dad did have a serious talk with the boy's parents. The boy's mother was very, very angry and screamed at her son. The boy's father kept quiet. And my dad didn't get too personal with them. He didn't tell them they did a lousy job raising their son or anything. As far as he was concerned, the only important thing was getting their help to keep their son away from his daughter. Once that was settled, he left them to deal with their family and come home to deal with his. At least that's how he put it. The one thing I did ask my dad was about the boys' problems at home. Whether or not he thought the parents hit their son. He told me to mind my own business, because he didn't know and would never ask and didn't think it mattered. Not everyone has a sob story, Charlie, and even if they do, it's no excuse. That's all he said, and then we went to watch television. My sister is still mad at me, but my dad said I did the right thing. I hope that I did, but it's hard to tell sometimes.
He really does love me. Our next reader is Gigi Gordon, and this is the second time I've invited her. She was going to read last year at an event like this and wasn't able to make it. So I'm so excited that she is here tonight. She's one of my oldest friends, and not chronologically, but I've known her for a very, very long time.
Not quite as long as Beverly.
Not quite as long as Beverly, but she and I used to serve on the Peninsula Arts Appreciation Council board of directors. So please welcome. Yeah, before the roof caved in. We had nothing to do with that. So please give a round of applause to Gigi.
So I'm going to read an excerpt from The Grapes of Wrath. Is the sound okay?
Yeah.
It's by John Steinbeck, and it was published in 1939. The Grapes of Wrath won the National Book Award and the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction that year, and was important, a key part of the body of work of John Steinbeck, for which he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1962. This year's Nobel in Literature will be released on Thursday, so I'm excited to see what it's going to be. This book is set during the Great Depression, the 1930s, and it focuses on a family named the Jones. a poor family of tenant farmers from Oklahoma. They were situated in the eye of a perfect storm of the Depression, the Dust Bowl, and merciless bank foreclosures. So that they lost their way to make a living and they lost their home. And like many others, the Joads set out from Oklahoma to California in hopes that California was a promised land where they would be able to find work and also find a home and dignity and a future. People like them were called Okies, and that was not that was a pejorative term. They were looked down upon. The Grapes of Wrath was an immediate bestseller around the country, but it was also banned and burned in a number of places, including Kern County, California, which is the endpoint of the Joads' journey to California. Though fictional, the novel is based firmly in real events, which involve the influx of all these people driven out of their homes in the Dust Bowl into California, because California held out the promise of agricultural work, which was what they'd done previously. It reflects the fear and disdain of many for these impoverished people who were tattered and dirty through no fault of their own. And it also reflects the suspicion that fell upon them when they made any efforts to organize or protest the way they were being treated, to criticize the growers. They were labeled communists and threatened with being banned from work altogether. When the book came out, some people in Kern County took offense, and a county supervisor denounced the book as lies and libel. In August 1939, the county's board banned the book from county libraries and schools, and copies were burned. It turns out that the censorship of this book in Kern County and other governmental bodies became a key event in the creation of the Library Bill of Rights, which is based upon the belief that in America we have the right to access whatever information we want without having anybody look over our shoulders. The excerpt I'm going to read is from the last third of the book. The matriarch of the Joad family is Ma Joad. Though many regard her son, Tom, as the hero of the book, and if you've read the book or you've seen the movie, that would be the Henry Fonda character, to me, Ma Joad is the hero of this novel, and she's actually my favorite hero in all of fiction. She holds the family together through hard work, wisdom, determination, grit, common sense, and love. Here they have finally arrived in California and found their first job there, picking peaches. They can't just throw the peaches in the box. Each one has to be picked and delicately placed in the box. And when they fill a box, they get 5 cents. The whole family, 5 adults and 2 children, working all afternoon, are able to pick 20 satisfactory boxes. At 5 cents a peach, they've earned $1. In late afternoon, Ma cashes out on those 20 boxes and gets a piece of scrip for $1. The 3 adult men stay in the orchard and continue to work. They're going to keep picking until the sun goes down, while Ma makes her way to this nearby store to get food with her scrip. Everyone is hoping for the first full meal they've had in a long time. So this is the excerpt. The company's store was a large shed of corrugated iron. It had no display window. Ma opened the screen and went in, and a tiny little man stood behind the counter. He was completely bald. His head was blue-white. He had large brown eyebrows that covered his eyes in such a high arch that his face seemed surprised and a little frightened. His nose was long and thin and curved like a bird's beak, and his nostrils were blocked with light brown hair. Over the sleeves of his blue shirt, he wore black sateen sleeve protectors, and he was leaning on his elbows at the counter when she entered. "Afternoon," she said. He inspected her with interest, arched his eyes. The arch became higher. He said, "Howdy. I got a slip here for $1. You can get $1 worth, he said. He giggled shrilly. Yes, sir, $1 worth, $1 worth. He moved his hand at the stock and said, any of it. He pulled his sleeve protectors up. Thought I'd get a piece of meat. Got all kinds, he said. Hamburger, like to have hamburger? 20 cents a pound hamburger. It got awfully high. Seems to me hamburger was 15 last time I got some. Well, he giggled softly. That's high. Same time, it ain't high, because time you go in town for a couple pound hamburger, it'll cost you about a gallon of gas, and see if it ain't really high either, because you got no gallon of gas. Ma said sternly, it didn't cost you no gallon of gas to get out of here. I laughed as I was looking at it pass backwards. He said, we ain't buying it, we're selling it. And if we was buying it, why that'd be different. Ma put two fingers to her mouth and frowned with thought. It looks full of fat and gristle. I ain't guaranteeing she won't cook down, storekeeper said. I ain't guaranteeing I'd eat it myself. But there's lots of stuff I wouldn't do. Ma looked up at him fiercely for a moment. She controlled her voice. Ain't you got some cheaper kind of meat? Soup bones, he said. 10 cents a pound. But them's just bones. Them's just bones. Make nice soup, just bones. Got any boiling beef? Oh, sure, that's 2 bits a pound. Well, maybe I can't get no meat, Ma said. But they wanted meat. They said they wanted meat. Everybody wants meat, needs meat. The hamburger's pretty nice stuff. Use the grease that comes out of it for gravy, and then pretty nice, no waste. Don't have to throw no bone away. How much is side meat? Well, now you're getting into the fancy stuff. Christmas stuff, Thanksgiving stuff, 35 cents a pound. I could sell you turkey cheaper if I had some turkey. Ma sighed. Give me 2 pounds hamburger. Yes, ma'am. He scooped the pale meat on a piece of wax paper. And what else? Well, some bread. Right, here's a fine big loaf, 15 cents. That there's a 12-cent loaf. Sure it is. Go right in town, get her for 12 cents. Gallon of gas. What else can I sell you? Potatoes? Yes, potatoes. 5 pounds for a quarter. Ma moved menacingly toward him. I've heard enough from you. I know what they cost in town. Little man clamped his mouth shut. Then go get him in town. I looked at her knuckles and said, what is this? Do you own this here store? No, I just work here. Any reason you gotta make fun? That help you any? She regarded her shiny, wrinkled hands. The little man was silent. Who owns this store? Hooper Ranches Incorporated. That's who, ma'am. And they set the price? Yes, ma'am. She looked up, smiling a little, and she said, everybody comes in like me. Everybody's mad, right? He hesitated for a moment and said, yes'm. And that's why you make fun? What do you mean? Doing a dirty thing like this shames you, doesn't it? You gotta act flip, huh? Her voice was gentle. The clerk watched her, fascinated. He didn't answer. That's how it is, Martha said finally. 40 cents for meat, 15 for bread, quarter for potatoes. That's 80 cents. Coffee? 20 cents is the cheapest, man. And that's the $1. 7 of us working, and that's supper. She studied her hand. Wrap them up, she said quickly. Yes, ma'am, he said. Thanks. He put the potatoes in a bag and folded the top carefully down. His eyes slipped to Ma, and then hid in his work again. She watched him. She smiled a little. How'd you get a job like this? She asked. Fella's gotta eat, he began, and then allegedly a fella's got a right to eat. What fella? I asked. He placed the 4 packages on the counter. Meat, he said, potatoes, bread, coffee, $1 even. She handed him her slip of paper and watched while he entered the name and the amount in the ledger. There, he said, now we're all even. Ma picked up her bags and then said, say, we got no sugar for the coffee. My boy Tom, he wants sugar. Look, she said. They're working out there. They're still working, and if you let me have some sugar, I'll bring the slip in later. Little man looked away, took his eyes as far from Ma as he could. I can't do it, he said softly. That's the rule, I can't. I'd get in trouble. I'd get cabbed. But they were working out in the field right now. They got more than a dime coming. Give me 10 cents of sugar. Tom, he wanted sugar in his coffee. Spoke about it. I can't do it, ma'am. That's the rule. No slip, no groceries. The manager, he talks all the time about this. No, I can't do it. I can't. They catch me. They always catch fellas. Always. I can't. For a dime? For anything, ma'am, he looked pleading at her. And then his face lost his fear. He took 10 cents from his pocket and rang it up in the cash register. There, he said with relief. He pulled a little bag from under the counter, whipped it open and scooped some sugar into it, weighed the bag and added a little more. There you are, he said. Now it's all right. You bring in your slip and I'll get my dime back. I studied him. Her hand went blindly out and put the little bag of sugar on the pile in her arm. Thanks to you, she said quietly, and she started for the door. And then, when she reached it, she turned back around and said, I'm learning one thing good. Learning it all the time, every day. If you're in trouble, or hurt, or need, go to poor people. They're the only ones that'll help. The only ones. Screen door slammed behind her. The little man leaned on his elbows on the counter, looked after her with surprised eyes. A plump tortoiseshell cat leaped up on the counter and stalked lazily near to him. It rubbed sideways against his arms, and he reached out with his hand and pulled it against his cheek. The cat purred loudly, and the tip of its tail jerked back and forth.
Our next reader also is from the library here. Her name is Emily Couts. She works up in circulation for Melissa. And she is going to be reading an excerpt from a book by Tim O'Brien, who I've had the privilege of reading, and he's amazing. The book is called The Things They Carry. Emily.
So I chose this book mainly because it's one that I know someone I know has read, and it was on the bingo cards. On top of that, it's also about Vietnam, and two people I know were around during that era, and it, I think, captures the sort of feelings that they had during that time, and it also carries a lot of weight towards veterans and how they feel when they come back, even in this day and age. So the excerpt I'm going to read is from the chapter called Notes. The narrator, again, this is all fictional, despite it being very real still. And it's about him talking about notes that he gets from one of his fellow soldiers when they go back to America, and about how he deals with his memories. Speaking of Courage was written in 1975 at the suggestion of Norman Baker, who 3 years later hanged himself in the locker room of a YMCA in his hometown in central Iowa. In the spring of 1975, near the time of Saigon's final collapse, I received a long, disjointed letter in which Baker described the problem of finding meaningful use for his life after the war. He had worked briefly as an automobile parts salesman, a janitor, a car wash attendant, and a short order cook at the local A&W fast food franchise. None of these jobs, he said, had lasted more than 10 weeks. He lived with his parents, who supported him and who treated him with kindness and obvious love. At one point, he had enrolled in the junior college at his hometown, but the coursework, he said, seemed too abstract, too distant, with nothing real or tangible at stake, certainly not the stakes of a war. He dropped out after 8 months. He spent his mornings in bed, In the afternoons, he played pickup basketball at the Y, and then at night, he drove around town in his father's car, mostly alone, or with a six-pack of beer, cruising. The thing is, he wrote, there's no place to go, not just in this lousy little town, in general. My life, I mean. It's almost like I got killed over in Nam. Hard to describe. That night when Kiowa got wasted, I sort of sank down into the sewage with him. Feels like I'm still deep in the shit. The letter covered 17 handwritten pages, its tone jumping from self-pity to anger to irony to guilt to a kind of feigned indifference. He didn't know what to feel. In the middle of the letter, for example, he reproached himself for complaining too much. God, this is starting to sound like some jerk-off vet crying in his beard. Sorry about that, I'm no basket case. Not even any bad dreams. And I don't feel like anybody mistreats me or anything. Except sometimes people act too nice, too polite. Like they're afraid they might ask the wrong question. But I shouldn't bitch. One thing I hate, really hate, is all those whiner vets. Guys sniveling about how they didn't get any parades. Such absolute crap. I mean, who in his right mind wants a parade? Or getting his back clapped by a bunch of patriotic idiots who don't know jack about what it feels like to kill someone, or get shot at, or sleep in the rain, or watch your buddy go down underneath the mud. Who needs it? Anyhow, I'm basically A-okay, home free. So why not come down for a visit sometime and we'll chase pussy and shoot the breeze and tell each other old war lies. A good long bull session, you know? I felt it coming. And near the end of the letter it came. He explained that he had read my first book, If I Die in Combat Zone, which he liked, except for the bleeding heart political parts. For half a page, he talked about how much the book had meant to him, how it brought back all kinds of memories, the vials, the patties, the rivers, and how he recognized most of the characters, including himself, even though almost all the names were changed. Then Bowker came straight out with it. What you should do, Tim, is write a story about a guy who feels like he got zapped over in that shithole. A guy who can't get his act together, and just drives around town all day and can't think of any damn place to go, and doesn't know how to get there anyway. This guy wants to talk about it, but he can't. If you want, you can use the stuff in this letter, but not my real name, okay? I'd write it myself, except I can't find any words, if you know what I mean, and I can't figure out exactly what to say. Something about the field that night, the way Kiowa just disappeared into the crud. You were there. You can tell it. Norman Bowker's letter hit me hard. For years I had felt a certain smugness about how easily I had made the shift from war to peace, and nice smooth glide, no flashbacks, no midnight sweats. The war was over after all, and the thing to do was go on. So I took pride in sliding gracefully from Vietnam to graduate school, from July to Harvard, from one world to another. In ordinary conversation, I never spoke much about the war, certainly not in detail, and yet, ever since my return, I had been talking about it virtually nonstop through my writing. Telling stories seemed a natural, inevitable process, like clearing the throat. Partly catharsis, partly communication. It was a way of grabbing people by the shirt and explaining exactly what had happened to me. How had I allowed myself to get dragged into a wrong war, all the mistakes I'd made, all the terrible things I'd seen and done. I did not look on my work as therapy. I still don't. Yet, when I received Norman Bowker's letter, it occurred to me that the act of writing had led me through a swirl of memories that might otherwise have ended paralysis or worse. By telling stories, you objectify your own experience. You separate it from yourself. You pin down certain truths. You make up others. You start sometimes with an incident that truly happened, like the night at that shit field, and you carry it forward by inventing incidents that did not, in fact, occur, but nevertheless help to clarify and explain.
So our next reader on the list, Kayla Ray, could not make it today. So our next reader is going to be Dr. Kel Sassy, who's a professor at Northern Michigan University. University, and a great supporter of the library and intellectual freedom. And she is going to be reading from the book A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds.
I've never said this in public before, but I grew up in a home without a bookshelf. But fortunately, I had a mother who took me to the library every week. And since my childhood, obviously, I've experienced a lot of privilege. I've been a professor for 16 years now. I was a high school teacher before that. And I've had a lot of experiences that a privileged person can have in terms of travel and seeing different things in life. But there are some things that you can't experience with money or opportunity or privilege. And one of them is a gift from Jason Reynolds in this book. There's a young man, the protagonist, his name's William. And I, as a white middle-aged woman, would not be able to sit inside William's room or understand what it feels like to lose his brother to gang violence or to gun violence. And I feel really passionate about reading tonight. I'm glad Marty asked me because I believe that the theme that the ALA has this year, Let Freedom Read, is an important one for us as Americans. I truly believe that our freedom to read is what helps us to keep rebuilding our democracy every generation, which is our task to do. And that teachers, many future teachers are in the room tonight, have a very special place in protecting that freedom. And the library is a wonderful partner in that. So in this book, I'm just going to read a few excerpts, but you'll see that the novel is in poem form. So I've selected a few poems from this book that put together a little bit of the story. The first one is called My Name Is. William Holloman. But to my friends and people who know me, just Will. So call me Will, because after I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you'll either want to be my friend or not want to be my friend at all. Either way, you'll know me. I'm only William to my mother and my brother Sean whenever he was trying to be funny. Now I'm wishing I would have laughed more at his dumb jokes, because the day before yesterday, Sean was shot and killed. I felt like crying, which felt like another person trapped behind my face, tiny fists punching the backs of my eyes, feet kicking at my throat at the spot where the swallow starts. Stay put, I whispered to him. Stay strong, I whispered to me, because crying is against the rules. The rules. Number 1, crying. Don't. No matter what. Don't. Number 2, snitching. Don't. No matter what. Don't. Number 3, revenge. If someone you love gets killed, find the person who killed them and kill them. There are anagrams sprinkled throughout the book. Here's one. Anagram is when you take a word and rearrange the letters to make another word. And sometimes the words are still somehow connected. Example, canoe, ocean. Same letters, different words, somehow still make sense together, like brothers. The middle drawer was the only thing ever out of place on Sean's side of the room, like a random jagged tooth in a perfect mouth, jammed tight between the top drawer of shirts, folded into neat rectangles stacked like project floors, and the bottom drawer of socks and underwear. Off track, stuck, forced in at an angle. Seemed like the middle drawer was jacked up on purpose to keep me and Mom out. And Sean's gun in. So, we'll skip ahead. He gets the gun and he's headed down the elevator to fulfill rule number 3. A mysterious figure gets on the elevator. And this person's looking at him and it's kind of creeping him out. So this poem is called 9:08:04 a.m. Do I know you? I asked, irritated, freaked out. The man smiled, adjusted the chains around his neck, looked me straight in the eyes, dead in the face. You don't recognize me? He asked, his voice deep, familiar. I looked harder, squinted, trying to place his face. No, not really, I said. He smiled wide, a jagged mouth, sharp and shark-like, then turned around so that I could see the back of his t-shirt. A silkscreen photo, him squatting low, middle fingers in the air, and a smile made of triangles. Rest in peace, Buck. You'll be missed forever. So, 9:08:08 a.m., the elevator rumbled and vibrated and knocked around like the middle drawer, like something off track. Scared the hell out of me. What's taking this stupid thing so long? I asked, pounding the door as hard as my heart was pounding inside me. This rickety thing has always moved slow, Buck said, grinning. Yeah, but this is ridiculous, I replied, palms wetting. Might as well relax, Buck said. It's a long way down. And indeed it is. I'm not going to give away the ending. Read more.
Thank you, Cal. Our next reader is a person who helped me co-organize this event, Amanda Pierce, who is the head of the Teen Zone, and she is actually going to be reading one of my favorite banned books ever. So this book is called It's a Book, and it's by Lane Smith.
Hello. So not only are many teen and young adult books and adult books banned, but the amount of children's books that are being banned is amazingly high. This book was challenged but retained at the Edmond Public Library in 2013 after being banned by 2 Massachusetts school districts in 2010. The book is about a book-loving monkey, a tech-savvy donkey, and a straight-talking mouse. And the last words of the book are why the book is banned. So I'm going to read this. Super cute. I highly recommend it. Lane Smith also wrote The Stinky Cheese Man and a bunch of other books that are amazing, and I highly recommend reading all of them. But it's really sad when you're seeing children's books banned, and I read to my kids all the time, but I don't get to do it as much anymore, so it's my favorite time of year. It's a book. What do you have there? It's a book. How do you scroll down? I don't. I turn the page, it's a book. Do you blog with it? No, it's a book. Where's your mouse? Here. Can you make the characters fight? Nope. Book. Can it text? Nope. Tweet? Nope. Wi-Fi? Nope. Can it do this? Toot? No! It's a book. Look. Arg. Long John Silver. Are we in agreement then? He unsheathed his broad cutlass, laughing a maniacal laugh. Ha ha ha! Jim was petrified, but the end was upon him. And then in the distance, a ship. A wide smile played across the lad's face. Too many letters. I'll fix it. LOL. Surprise! What else can this book do? Does it need a password? No. Need a screen name? No, it's a book! Oh. Read. Are you going to give me my book back? No. Fine. I'm going to the library. Don't worry, I'll charge it up when I'm done. You don't have to do that. It's a book, jackass.
It's a great one.
It's the best book ever, I really think. Okay, our penultimate reader is Mr. Jim Edwards, who is the programmer at the UP Children's Museum, and he is going to be reading from the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer and Ulysses by James Joyce.
You brave people, you've stayed. I'll swap the order. We'll end on a high note. My wife and other people tell me if I start talking in my accent, none of you understand the word I'm saying. So imagine when I were 11 and I walked into school there at grammar school, and I did talk like that from my part of Bristol in southwest England. And there was a lovely lad called Teddy. He was the Huber Didaskalos. That means the undermaster to you, vice principal. And he used to teach me how to speak proper. We read lots of poems. And when I was 17, I heard that my grandmother was really a McGuinness. And she was from Ireland. And so at the same time, I was reading James Joyce. And I found out about stuff I had no idea of. Then Marty says, would you read? And I said, could I read James Joyce? I said, sure. So there are 44 pages to this sentence. I've cut it down to the last sentence, which is, there are 8 sentences in the 44 pages. So we're doing the last. No, I cut it down to 3 pages of the last sentence. Well, actually I've been crossing out whilst we've been listening. And so I'm going to do a page and a half, just so you get there. I love flowers. I love to have the whole place swimming in roses, God of heaven. There's nothing like nature, the wild mountains, then the sea and the waves rushing, then the beautiful country with fields of oats and wheat and all kinds of things. I got him to propose to me. Yes, first I gave him a bit of seed cake out of my mouth, and it was a leap year, like 16 years ago. I liked him because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is, and I knew I could always get round him, and I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes, and I wouldn't answer first, just only looking out over the sea. I was thinking of so many things, and the sky. And he didn't know, and the watchman was going about serene with his lamp, and oh, that awful deep down torrent, oh, and the sea crimson, sometimes like fire, and the glorious sunsets and the fig trees and the Alameda Gardens, yes, on all the queer little streets, and pink and blue and yellow houses, and the rose gardens, and the jessamine and geraniums and cactuses, and Gibraltar as a girl, where I was a flower of the mountain. Yes, when I put the rose in my hair like the Andalusian girls used, or shall I wear a red? Yes, and how he kissed me. And I thought, well, as well him as another. And then I asked him with my eyes to ask me again, yes. And then he asked me, would I? Yes. To say, yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around him, yes, and drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts, all perfume, yes. And his heart was going like mad, and yes. I said, yes, I will. Yes. treat this evening, as I introduce to you the band book players, we need, and one of them doesn't even know he's doing it. Nobody knows what they're doing, do they? No. When they got popcorn, they had to make a promise. So imagine at 19, I was off to college and learning about South African theatre, where at the beginning of the play, the audience was asked if they were going to report us. Because in South Africa, meetings of 44 people wasn't allowed. And so a play was prohibited. And so those folks from South Africa were invited to say, if you're going to be in the audience, stay. If you're going to report us, leave, because we don't want to hurt you. And my mentor there was a Cape-coloured man who wasn't allowed to walk with the blacks. He was coloured in between. And I learned about the spectrum of things. But then imagine the phone call I got to go back to my school in Bristol, which was a cathedral, and to read Chaucer, because Teddy, that lovely man who read poems with me, had died. And standing in the pulpit of the cathedral with 400 people, a clerk of Oxenford there was, and that a worthy man. Gladly would he learn, and gladly teach. And it was Chaucer and it was Teddy. So I thought, well, we all think that banned books are nasty, and fiery, and rude, but let's leave out the nasty and the fiery. Teddy's big thing with us was, it's not rude, it's not arrogant and nasty and vulgar, it's bawdy. And there's a distinction between whether you intend to upset, or whether you want to bring us all together and to have joy. The Miller's Tale, I don't know what you know of the Canterbury Tales. Sounds old, sounds boring, tedious, and we know it's ever so long. This is not quite what you're imagining. There was a lecherous old man. So, Marty, come and join us.
Up here.
Whoa, not so.
Okay.
This is a carpenter who has happened to got himself married to a wonderful 18-year-old young lass called Alison. Now, Alison's not too happy with the lecherous old man. I think you should go up right there. Now, I've told these two other actors there's no nudity. Okay. I directed this play at a high school, my first teaching job, with the actors who were all 16-year-olds holding life-size puppets in front of them, so they could stick their bottoms out of the window. We'll bring you along. Anyway, so she's not happy enough. He's not sitting all right. So she has a lover, young Nicholas. Jump on! You're right in the middle. Keep it this. Nicholas has a plan. He wants to get together with Alison. Sorry, you don't have to act. We just got your faces. He wants to get to it, but he's suspicious. So Nicholas comes up with a plan. There's going to be Noah's second flood. Kill them all. The carpenter devises a plan. He makes a boat hanging from each of the ceiling. So each of them has a boat in the ceiling, hanging there, separated. All right, you better be in the middle.
Oh, okay.
So they can't meet up. But Alison's not happy with him. There's young Absalom. You stay down with me. Oh, can I borrow your stick? Not for me. It becomes this here's a medieval prop. Not yet. I'll find out. See if we can do this. Right. So, in the best of ways, none of us know what we're doing. We'll find out. The night was as dark as pitcher as coal, and out the window she stuck her hole. Oh, hang on. So you see, he wants to kiss you. And it's dark at night, so come along. Stay there. Now, see, remember, life-size puppets as well, so it was alright. You don't have to do anything. So she thinks it's a bit of a joke, that instead of him climbing up the ladder to this bedroom where they've got 3 boats hanging from the ceiling, it's all dark and he doesn't know because you're fast asleep, see? She don't let him kiss it, she sticks her bottom out the window. You don't think it's very funny. So you go off and find somebody called a blacksmith, and from him you get a red hot poker. Watch out, that's the hot end. It's okay, nothing bad I can do. Right then, let's see how this works. He had caught the poker by the cold steel, and softly he went to the door and knocked on the carpenter's wall. He coughs first, then knocks again upon the window, just as he did before. Alison answers, "Who is there?" "Who knocks so? I believe it's a thief." "Oh, why no," said he. "God knows, my sweet lover, I am your Absalom, my darling. I have," he said, "brought you a ring of gold. My mother knew it, gave it to me, so God save me. Very fine it is and delicately engraved. This I will give you, this ring, for a kiss." Now, Nicholas, relax. Now, Nicholas, it was at this point the play I directed came to a halt because the audience didn't believe this was Chaucer. Are you ready? Now, Nicholas had risen for a piss and thought that he was to pass the joke. Absalom would kiss his arse before he left. He opened the window quickly and put his arse secretly out. Stick your arse out. Over the buttock to the thigh bone, then said to Absalom, the clerk, "Speak, pretty bird, I know not where thou art." And Nicholas then let fly a fart, as loud as it should be, a thunderclap, and nearly blinded Absalom. But he was ready with his hot iron, and he hit Nicholas right on the arse. Off went about a hand's breadth of skin. The hot iron so burned his butt, and he thought he would die of the pain. Oh, oh. As if he were mad, he began to cry, "Help! Water! 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 Help for God's sake!" Now, that water woke the carpenter, who's expecting Noah's second flood. So he heard someone crying water as if he were mad, and the carpenter thought, "Alas!" Say alas. Alas! He's good. "Noah's flood has come!" He sat up without further ado, and with his axe, borrow his hot pot, with his axe, I think we broke his stick.
Oh no! Did I? It decides to get it's collapsible. It goes right together. No problem. Play was fun.
He sat up with further thought, and with his axe he cut the cord of 2, and cut down all the boats, and down it all went upon the floor, and there in a swoon the carpenter lay. Oh, swoon. Up jumped Alison and Nicholas, and cried, "Out and Harrow!" Say, "Out, out, 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 out." Okay. And they ran around in the street, Shout, "Out, out, out, and Harrow," yes, sir. But the neighbours, both rich and poor, that she got, ran to stare at this man, and they swore, and he swore with so many great oaths, that he was considered crazy in all the town. For every clerk that stood there firmly by the other, they said, "This man is crazy." No, not you, him. And my dear brother, and every man began to laugh at this swain. Oh, you are much better than I thought. Here's the last 4 lines from Chaucer, because obviously this was translated because you'd never understand what I said. "Thus swift was this carpenter swift, for all his caping and his jealousy yet, and Absalom hath kissed her nether eye yet." It's the most famous line in what's that comedy series that isn't on anymore? Who's got it? He plays Sheldon. Sheldon.
Oh,
She keeps trying to tell them her joke about kissing her nether eye. Thus swayed was his carpenter's wife, and for all his caping and his jealousy, and Absalom hath kissed her nether yea, and Nicholas is scalded in the toute. If you didn't know, here's the translation. Thus screwed was this carpenter's wife, despite all his care and his jealousy, and Absalom has kissed her nether eye, and Nicholas is scalded in the butt. This tale is done. Get ready for a curtain call. This tale is done, and God save all of us. There we go. Head on.
Awesome.
I had to return this.
Although you might want to use some
Father.
I'll have to let the Chaucer professor know about the increased enrollment.
But on Friday, bringing us up to date, I was editing a newsletter for the Children's Museum, and a young lady writing in 818 Media, a youth journalism program at the Children's Museum, had written these 4 lines, or included them in her piece for the Mining Journal, which appeared last week. Lock up your libraries if you like, but there is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set upon the freedom of my mind.
That's a hard act to follow. Because of the time, I was going to read you a selection from Melissa, but you know what? I'm going to leave that up to Alex Gino. Alex Gino is going to be reading here in the community room virtually on October 23rd, starting at 7 p.m. You're not going to be able to watch this online just because we've caught wind of maybe some people who might not be that happy about Alex Gino reading here. So if you want to hear Alex Gino read here at the library, please come. You don't have to register or get tickets for it. It's 7 p.m., October 23rd. Alex is a wonderful, wonderful writer, wonderful, wonderful person. If you go to his website, all it says is, all I ask is that you be kind. So that's what Alex says. So please come back. This is a really wonderful book. It's Melissa. It's about a little trans girl who wants to play Charlotte in her school play, and how that works out. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. But I really want to thank everyone who showed up tonight, all of the readers. You were all fantastic. And you know what? Let's let freedom read. Because that's what it's all about. Thank you.